life right now who are in holding patterns. They're going around in circles, but they have not yet been cleared to land, and they have not yet landed. They got off the ground successfully, but it's like they're stuck in the middle. See, the holding pattern is the place in between your takeoff and your landing. It's the place in the middle. And so some people were excited because they took off, but they have not yet landed in the place that they were designed or destined to land. It's the holding place. Now, people fall into holding patterns. Institutions fall into holding patterns. Some churches fall into holding patterns. They don't grow, they just hold what they got. Something different. Many of us think that we're moving, but we're not really moving. I just left Houston this week, and I was in Houston, and in Houston there's an interstate system called the 610. And the 610 loops all the way around the city. In Atlanta, I think it's 285. 285 loops all the way around the city. And the thing about it is you can jump on 610 and you can put the pedal to the metal. And you can drive as fast as you want, and it looks like you're gaining progress. But you're not gaining progress. You're only expending energy because you're going to come right back around to the same place that you've already been. And just because you're moving does not mean you're progressing. I want to talk to somebody who's been doing a lot of moving but has not really been progressing. I've been busy, but I have not been productive. I've been expending energy, but I have not been getting the right results. It's like I've been going around in circles. There was a secular songwriter who said, "You got me going." Don't act like you never heard the song. I know. I want you to understand this. Just bear with me for a minute. Let me lay some foundation. In the wilderness, I want to talk for a moment. The wilderness is the in-between place. See, when the children of Israel came out of Egypt, they were destined for the promised land, which was Canaan, but they ended up in the wilderness. The wilderness is the in-between. It's the, you ever been in a jam? They call it the rock between, I'm between a rock and a hard place, people say. When you're between the rock and a hard place, somebody's trying to say I'm in the wilderness. The wilderness means that I don't fit where I came from, but I'm not quite ready for where I'm going. I'm in a middle ground. I'm in a place where it's a strange place because the people over here don't want me anymore, but the people over there look at me funny. And so I wonder, which way am I going to go? And when I'm in the wilderness, I've got a choice to make. I can go back to that which is comfortable, or I can go ahead and do what God called me to do, even though it's not comfortable. Now, the wilderness is not a physical place. The wilderness is a very small place. In fact, the wilderness is only 5 inches wide. The wilderness is the distance between your ears. It's only 5 inches wide. The most important territory or real estate that you could ever invest in lies right between your two ears. It's only 5 inches long. And if you can get that real estate right, you can have any real estate that you want. Watch this. When a pilot goes through the clouds, the pilot oftentimes can get disoriented, especially if he's an amateur. If he's an amateur, he can flip the plane upside down and not even realize he's flipped it upside down, and when he comes out the clouds, he thinks he's going up, but he's going down because he's disoriented. In other words, I need somebody to understand, when you go through some hellish stuff in your life, when you go through some difficult things, you got to make sure that up is up and down is down. Because you could be trying to go up, and instead of going up, you could be going down. And so you got to get your balance. You got to look at the gauges in life. You got to have the Word of God as a spiritual navigator that tells you which way is up and which way is down. Because when you've been down for a long time, down becomes normal and up becomes abnormal. And then you become... I need you to hear me. In other words, what I'm saying is there's some people who are living in dysfunction, and it's normal for them because they've been in it for a long time. And when somebody tries to make them be normal, they think that they are normal because they've been in it for a long time. But just because you've been in a thing for a long time does not mean it's right for you, and it's what God ordained for you. And God could be saying, you've circled this mountain long enough. You've been upside down long enough. You've been dysfunctional long enough. It is time for you to come out into the marvelous light. And this wilderness is simply a proving ground that that I'm going to change your mentality so that your mentality will reflect where you're going to. Realm that you cannot see, and you got to understand that everything that you need is in the storehouse, but the storehouse you can't see. And so before I take you to that land, I'm going to put you in the proving ground, and I'm going to show you that I'm every bit of God that I told you that I was. I told you that I am that I am. I am means that I can be anything you need me to be, whenever you need me to be it, and how you need me to be it. I can be a bridge over troubled water. I can be the lily of the valley. I can be the bright and morning star. I can be the wheel in the middle of the way. I can be a blank check when you need finances. Whatever you need, I can be that and more. And God says, this is the proving ground. Try me now and see if I will not open up the windows of heaven and pour you out a blessing you don't have room enough to receive. But you cannot be moved by what's around you. You cannot be moved by the external. You've got to be moved by the internal and the eternal, because greater is he that is in me. Wish I had 10 people who understood what I'm talking about. I'm trying to get you to a place of understanding, because somebody right now is crying about where you are, and God said, stop crying, try me. Somebody said, God, get me out. God saying, no, change your mentality. Get your own self out. Everybody saying, God, have you forgotten about me? God says, no, I love you. That's why I put you there. Because if I didn't love you, I would have left you a long time ago. But everything that you love, you chasing and you push and you pride and you challenge and you make it grow. That's why I love you. Love is not letting you do whatever you want, whenever you want to do. Put you here on purpose. And he says, now watch this. By day, I'll be a pillar of cloud. Follow me. He says, now when it turns dark and you can't see the cloud, I'll be a pillar of fire. Follow me. He says, when the children of Israel come after you, he says, I'll be light for you, but darkness to them. I'll show you that I've got the ability to stand between them and provide light for you and darkness at the same time for them. I want you to understand that I can make your enemy your footstool. And the enemy that you see today, that you shall never see again. And I want to let you know that I can be bread when you need bread. And I can be meat when you need meat. And I can be water out of a rock. In other words, he's saying you've got to get to a place where you're not moved by your sense realm evidence. It's a training ground. It's a training ground. And they failed in the training ground because of fear. Fear says, go back to what's normal. Go back to what's normal. Even though normal is abnormal, why would you run back to slavery? Why would you run back to an abusive relationship? Why would you run back to drugs? Why would you run back to alcohol? Why would you run back to a job that didn't appreciate you instead of going into a new frontier? Because the new frontier years, he says, for 40 years you're going to circle. But he says, for 40 years I took care of you. Even though you were not in my will. Even though you weren't doing what I said do, I took care of you. He says, your shoes did not wear out. Your clothes did not grow old, and you lack nothing. For somebody right now, you might be in the wilderness, but you got to tell the truth. You may not be wearing everything you want to wear, and you may not be eating everything you want to eat, and you may not be living where you really want to live or driving what you really want to drive. But the truth be told, God is still taking care of you. Even when you were out there in the world, in the club, God was still taking care of you. Other folks getting shot up, other folks getting beat up. God still had his hand on your life, even when you were trifling and didn't even deserve it, even when you were out there and everybody else was. I wish I had 10 people to say, come on, I may not have been eating steak, but I had something to eat every night. And when I didn't have something to eat, God automatically caused people to knock at my door and say, I got something for you. I'm telling you, if God can take care of you in the wilderness, if God can take care of you when you're out of his will, what would God do if you were in his